friends, it's Janice from La Rue de Fleurs, and I'm here with you in the studio today. I wanted to talk about and teach about one of my most popular items, the Patchwork Minky blanket. It's a great beginner project if you would like to learn how to quilt and sew for yourself. And I thought that it would be a great way to kind of get our feet wet with me teaching a class and with you if you're coming in new to sewing because of having a little extra time on your hands perhaps. Or just wanting to get into this really fun and creative hobby. So you can make these beautiful patchwork Minky blankets with just a few of your favorite fabrics. So I encourage you to go out to the store or online. There are a lot of local quilt shops that have also transitioned to selling online, so it'd be great if you could support a small business. Or also there are many on Etsy. And I do have a favorites page with a few of my favorite places to shop linked for you on the blog, and I will add that to the description box below as well if you would like to check those out and support those businesses. So what we are going to do today, this is going to be one of perhaps 5 videos to get through this in just like little chunks so that it's easier to break down and you can watch a bit, prepare, work on your project, and come back and do the next bit. So think of it as a mini class here. And I am going to, today we're going to do the introduction, so I'm kind of telling you what we're doing. I'm going to show you all the materials and supplies that you'll need to gather up so you can get those ready, as well as going to talk about how I choose fabrics. I wrote a blog post about this a few years ago, so you can go read about that too with a different example than what I'm going to show you today. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to work through for my children, that I'm going to make them twin size patchwork Minky blankets for each of their beds. So I'll do a more masculine version and a more feminine version, and I'll talk you through all of the selections for that. So just to show a few examples, these have been one of my best sellers. I've been making them basically since I opened my shop, so about 10 years worth, so maybe 100 or more. You can do them in a strip style, so that's where you would just cut across the entire width of fabric and piece them into large strips. That's really beautiful, very quick, excellent for beginners. And we are going to use this Minky swirl on the back, which is so amazingly soft, and I will show you in a later video how to fold it over to make these mitered corners as well, which is a really nice finishing touch on there. So there's one version that you could do, but the version that we are going to do in this video is the Patchwork Squares. So I use a pretty standard size for all of my pieces. They're 5.5 by 5.5 squares. You could do 5 by 5, but then you'll have to adjust how many you do across and down. So I typically do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across. So it finishes about 40-ish. And then, let's see, how many do I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 11 down. So it's about a 40 by 55 quilt, which is perfect. You can see that even me, now I'm a small adult, but it still covers my entire body. And there it is, up to my neck. So it is a great size. They're especially great for children. Lovely gifts for, you know, babies all the way up to toddlers. I have tweens and teens, so they are still wonderful for them even at this size, but they wanted ones for their bed. So I'm going to do a twin. But this is my standard size for gifting for small children. So it's great if you have friends and family who have recently had a baby, or you're maybe going to a shower and you want to give an excellent personalized gift. The nice thing is if you know just a few small details about the nursery or things that the parent likes or are using to decorate, you can pull all kinds of amazing fabrics to make a very personalized and meaningful blanket that the child can use for years and years. So, and then this is with the Minky dot fabric, and I love this. It comes in so many colors, so you can match whatever project you're working on. And I love getting that from Hawthorne Supply, which is linked in my favorites. And they have a ton of colors, and they coordinate so well with a lot of the prints that you can order from them as well. They'll give you suggestions, so that's a great bonus if you're unsure of how to choose or select fabrics. Okay, so to get started, the supplies that you'll need for this are really very basic. I have a Janome Skyline S5 sewing machine. It's right here off to the side. I usually sew with it here on my desk in front of me, but you wouldn't be able to see me if I did that. You'll need a walking foot. That helps you get through this thicker Minky fabric because the Minky is really soft and a little bit slippy. So that's the only tricky part. So I definitely highly recommend it if you could get a walking foot for your machine. Most machines come with one, and then you'll be really glad you have it if you'd like to move on with quilting. It will make your life so much easier. I just use a standard needle whenever I'm quilting. You may want to replace it if you've done a lot of projects. A fresh needle will improve your sewing. I have a rotary cutter and then a corresponding ruler, acrylic ruler with a grid on it so that you can see when you're measuring your fabric out, as well as a gridded mat. You'll need some pins. I like to keep mine in this little jar, and then I have some spare hand sewing threads down below for when I need to stitch, and then this is how I keep mine, so they're easily accessible. And then you may want to get some of these wonder clips, which I absolutely love for different projects that it's just hard to stick a needle through, or you know, you need a whole bunch of them. They're easier to take on and off sometimes when you're sewing things. And with this Minky, when we go to do the binding around the edge, we're going to wrap it over to enclose our fabric top. And you'll want these because it makes it so much easier as we go to like unclip them and sew with it. And I think they're just a great staple addition to have in your sewing room if you're getting started. You will use them a lot, especially if you try to do anything with fabrics that you may not want to stick pins into as you get going a little bit more in your sewing. So that's basically it. And like I said, then for fabric, I have this lovely Minky swirl. It is the most soft and dreamy stuff ever. And my son chose blue, and a lot of his fabrics are going to be in blues and blacks because those are his colors. And my daughter chose pink. She's very girly and she likes her pink. I have 4 yards of each for my twin-sized quilt. And then I typically have an assortment of fabrics that I can do a nice selection of different prints and things for making a really personalized quilt. So I'm going to pop you overhead and I will walk you through kind of how I choose the fabrics and what I think makes a good mix and kind of how to interplay those fabrics together if you're just getting started. Okay, so for my son, he really is interested in space. He has always been a big fan of Star Wars and just kind of space in general. But he is getting older and he didn't want something too thematic, which I totally understand. But he's very into science and all of those things. So we're kind of pulling on that to create and be the inspiration. And his colors that he really likes are blues and browns and grays and blacks. So very neutral palette. So for him, we are going to go with the space theme. And I found this absolutely beautiful panel from Andover Fabrics. And it has all of these space pieces on it, like little maps of the sky and whatnot. Now, I'm not sure how this will work in the 5x5 square format. So it may be better as an inspiration piece and to maybe make a corresponding pillowcase or something. But this was kind of the jumping off point. and then we'll see how it goes. And then some of the other fabrics that were part of that same collection are this that has geometry inspired figures on it, and it's a lovely like brown color. So then once you start going into that, you can very much build from there. So I'm having the assortment here, a lot from that same collection. So I had this other print, and it's just kind of like reminded me of maybe drawings of a spaceship. So I just have a fat quarter of that. So fat quarters are just parts of a yard. They're a quarter of a yard cut into a square basically, or like a squarish rectangle. And they're not very expensive depending on your opinion. So this one was $2.74. So it allows you to get a nice assortment of different fabrics. I typically, for my smaller blankets, choose around 10 so that you can lay them out all across the quilt and get a nice bouncing and mix of the patterns, and you're not having too many things clumped together. And I'll talk about that more in a later video when I show you how I lay everything out. But so we have the jumping off point fabric, and then from the same collection, the geometry based print. And then this one that's kind of picking up on that, right? So it's got a little bit of that same geometry look to it. Again, it's in the right tones and colors. It's a gray and sort of like a washed white color. Then with that, I have this print that looks to me kind of like a solar system diagram with the different dots and the oscillating sizes of those dots. Again, it's got the navy, the black, gray, and it's kind of speaking space to me, like outer space. So that's one then that is again thematic. Then from that same collection, we have this diagram that is like mapping of a planet perhaps, or I'm not exactly sure what that's showing, but it's the same collection. And this is bringing in a little bit of silver and the black. And you can see how they're sophisticated as well as they speak to space. So we're staying within theme. And then this one is a print, like a book print. And it is from the same collection. So here I have 1, 2, I think these might be from the same collection, but I don't know that they're from this one. 3 and 4 that are the same collection. So I started with that definitely as my jumping off point, right? So we have all of these that are speaking to each other so far, and that was quite easy, right? They're all from the same collection, and now I have the same print, the same book print, but in the tan or like parchment color. Okay, so we have all of those, and they're speaking to each other and pulling our theme through. Then we have this sort of watercolor solar system inspired or planet diagram inspired. We have this one that's kind of playing off of the geometry as well as the space. It's bringing in the gray and the white. Then I have in the blue, pulling on the text theme, this fat quarter that has a theme of adventure. And so it's pulling in the print of the type print of the text, as well as like some words, and it says, don't be afraid of change, let the adventure begin, and all of those kinds of things that are sort of inspirational and make me think of maybe a little nod to, space and exploration. Then another fabric that I have from a different collection is this map print. Now it's a little bit more antique looking and doesn't really speak as much to the space, but it does have airplanes, and it's a map print, and it's more of like travel, but I still feel that it works. It's in the same color family, and it's pulling those tones and just providing a little bit of a layer to the theme. And then I have a little tiny piece of text print that's left over from another project that I would like to use up. Now I only have enough probably for 2 blocks here, But I like having, if you have a small scrap of something that you just really love and it works, go ahead and throw it in. It's that little pop of something unexpected that will make your quilt unique. So this particular piece also talks about amusement and travel and stuff on the other side, and time. So I felt like it really went well with my theme, even if I can only get 2 pieces out of it. Okay, so then pulling on that, I have this very basic print that I've used in a lot of my patchwork blankets, and it's stars, and it's a very traditional looking star print, but I think when you mix it with all of the other prints that we have going here, it is really highlighting the theme, but in a different way. So again, we're adding layers. So this one is very literal, but it's still got the navy, the dark navy, and the brown in sort of like a parchment tone. So that's going on with our theme. Then we get into what I like to include in all of my quilts. So we have these more thematic prints that are really telling the story. Like this is a quilt that's kind of based on space for someone that likes outer space, space exploration. My son has been lucky enough to participate in some NASA programs and has done the Gavert Golden Apple Valley Space Telescope program last summer. And it's just something that he personally is really interested in. But as he's growing, he doesn't want something that would be like little astronauts or very colorful, literal solar systems or sunshines with smiley faces or anything. That would be much too juvenile. So here we have, that theme, but it's really more graphic. It's more adult. It's more grown up. So then what I always like to do once I have all my thematic things pulled is go through my collection and see what I have that's more of a basic. So now we're going to layer, and all of these basics are going to pull the colors throughout the quilt whenever we don't want a spot that's really thematic. So it keeps it from being just like you've gone and only gotten feature prints, right? So there, even in a movie, if you want to think about it like this, there's the lead character. So that's probably the person whose story you're following, right? So in this case, our lead character is the very geometric inspired and space inspired prints, right? That's our lead character, is the theme of space. But then our secondary character, which you'd have supporting cast, right? So that would be some of these other ones that are like the text print that kind of gives the like study aspect of this, or maybe this print that looks very subtly like geometry or sketches of a spaceship, and the star print, which is, again, it's playing off of the theme. It's a little bit more literal, but it's certainly not quite as eye-catching as some of these other very thematic looking pieces, okay? But then you have just your background characters, and they're just as important. They give the main stars and the supporting cast something to interact with, so that there's a lot of notes and layers to the project. So I have this print that is from Cotton and Steel. It's from 2015, so it's been in my stash for a while, but I love the scattered dots. And these basics were some of the best basics out there. You should still go and look for something similar, or perhaps they're still print running this. It was very, very popular. But it's great because it has this nice solid navy, and it works well here because it's ever so slightly giving me the feel of stars scattered across the sky, right? Like pinpoints of light in little clusters and then all spread out. So again, it's enhancing our theme, but it's really more basic. And it could go with a lot of things. And then again, on that note, we have this print, which is a washed dot in a blue wash. And I really love this one. Let's see if we can find the manufacturer. Robert Kaufman. And I love it because, again, it's making me think of maybe like a planet in the sky, like Earth from far away. It's kind of got that blue look to it, but it's not a theme. I could put this with anything that the blue color coordinated with, and it could go just as well. But here it's kind of pulling through with this earlier fabric that we chose that has the same washed planet look. And it's just in a different scale and a different print and a lighter color. So it's pulling some of the lighter colors from the geometric print here. Okay, and then to further enhance on that, now we're connecting with this other fabric. This is a Lotta Jensdottir print from several years ago too. It has another navy on white, so it's pulling through a little bit more of that hand-drawn look, as if you were sketching something out on your own to make a diagram. And again, this isolated could go with so many things. It doesn't have to be a space-themed fabric at all. But in this instance, I feel like it is a little bit talking to the other things that we have going on here, right? So it's got the white background, so we're pulling in a little bit of lighter layer. So that's speaking to the white background that we have. This also has a little bit more of a hand-drawn, sketched look, as do the planets fabric that we have from earlier. And it's pulling in the navy with a white background. So here we have navy background with a white dot, and now we're doing the opposite of that in an even larger scale. So we're going from a miniature scale to a medium scale to a large scale, and that's just adding these layers to our project that keeps it very interesting. And anything like a nice dot can really enhance your stash, because like I'm saying, if I pulled these three out, and I have used these before with like a woodland theme, anything really, it's all about, you know, using that scale and coordinating it with other things, that it just adds those layers together. I like to try to tie all of the colors together in my different fabrics, right? So here we have our grouping that is the parchment color and the black colors. So we've already pulled through the navy and the white. Now we need to tie through the parchment and the black. So we're going to do that with this little cross-themed fabric. Now, what do the crosses have to do with space? Really nothing, you know, really nothing, except that maybe they could be like parts on a graph, or little tick marks when you're checking things or plotting things out. So, I mean, you know, that's just kind of my interpretation of it. It made sense to me in my mind, but the reason that I liked it is that it's pulling, it's marrying these two fabrics together, right? So it's taking the black with the parchment and a little bit of the gray blue, I do believe, and it's kind of making those all tie together in a layer there. And again, this could go with anything in your stash. So building up a great supply of basics, I think, is really integral to having success with your quilting. So not only getting themed fabrics, which are super fun and can help you make these kinds of quilts, or blankets in this case, but it's also important to build up a stash of really great basics, so that you're not having only thematic things, so that you can tie it all together and you have loads of things to choose from, and it keeps it from being something that anyone else could just go make. So the nice thing about, you know, doing a stash pull by yourself and creating a fabric pull for yourself versus, I mean, you can just go and buy a fat quarter bundle, and that's a great place to start if that's your thing and you're really not sure where to begin, or this doesn't make that much sense, or you're kind of uncomfortable. Or you could start with a stash bundle, or a fat quarter bundle, a pre-made bundle, and then take that with you shopping and go get some of your own basics to mix it in, what you like that you think goes with it. That's these different scale prints. Again, we have a micro print here. There we have a micro print, then we have a medium print, then we have a larger print. Now we have introduced the little cross mark or the little tick mark, and then I have another piece of fabric that again is playing with that theme on a different scale. And this one is also textured because it is actually sewn through with these crosses. They're not printed on. So I love this kind of little bit more woven. It's got a completely different texture than some of the other fabrics, which makes it really interesting. And then it is doing that tick mark in a larger size, and then with like a blue-gray thread. So I love that that's adding yet another layer, another element to our project. And then from the tick marks, we just have basically this one that to me looks like pen and ink, right? A little bit like if you were just making little lines on a piece of paper. And this is a brighter color, a little bit brighter of a blue, but I like that it's kind of pulling in. Again, to me, it's like that study look, but it's got the white and the blue background. It's a bit brighter than this blue, but it's still in the same tonal family as the light blue and as the navy. It's very pure blue, and I really like that because this one's a little bit more of a denim color than some of the other navies that I have. So I like having that layer of something a little bit different, and it's, you know, we have a lot of dots sort of prints, so it's nice to have something that's a little bit more linear as well. Again, it's just another layer of interest. So we're looking for those ways to add interest to our layers. And then we have this last print, which is a little triangle in blues, and it in this dusty blue and black and brown, or excuse me, not black, in browns and a little softer blue. And this one has that scatter print as well. And now we're pulling together, like we did here, we have the brown background with the navy stars. This time we have a blue, a soft blue, so it's speaking to our soft blue here on the dot. And it has the parchment brown color as well as a little bit deeper of a brown. So it's pulling in our brown and blue color story together. And then we have triangles in this particular print with the geometry. And we also have triangles here in this geometric print. And I love how that kind of pulls all of that part of the story together, right? So again, we're adding another layer that's tying it in. So we have triangles in a small print, we have triangles in a medium-sized print, and we have triangles in a more of a large-scale print. And we're doing that with all of our fabrics because it makes it more interesting, and it adds those visual layers and those layers to the composition that make your quilt unique and interesting. Okay, so that is the male fabrics. So my daughter likes pink, and she's younger, so she has a little bit more of a whimsical take. She likes cats, so we started with this collection, which is a Heather Ross collection from several years ago. I believe it's called, Tiger Lily. Okay, so I have, this is if you were going to start with a fat quarter bundle, this is how I would do it. Select something that you absolutely love, all of the prints, okay? So she loved the majority of these prints. They were largely in her color palette of pinks and oranges and yellows. She's not a super big fan of green, but I did talk her into including those just because, again, I felt like it gave the color story more depth. And a lot of the prints involve that, so you need them to talk to each other. That's what we're doing, and to pull all the colors through. So we kept that in. Then all of the kitty prints, we had to use all of the kitty prints. She loves kitties. So here's the cat print in a pink, cat print in a white, and this is what you would get if you purchased a pre-made bundle. You would get each print in a few different colorways, okay, and that is kind of already coordinated for you. Within that bundle, there's also this very this floral medallion print in a few colorways. So it's got this more tiger lily color, that deep orange red, then it's a pale pink version of that same print, and then a white and more green color tone of that same print. So we're going with those. Then it has a rose print with the same pink background, and then a rose print with a yellow background, and a rose print with a cream background. So all of these are already coordinated for me. Great jumping off point. I love it. Super easy. Our theme is like cats in the garden, I guess, okay? But we can't have just cats in the garden. We need to have unicorns in the garden. So here is this great cotton and steel print from a few years ago, and it's got the same mustardy yellow same goldeny yellow tone, as well as the peach, which kind of tones in with that tiger lily and is a lighter version of the rose color there. So we're adding that in. And again, it's like a larger scale print, maybe more on the size of the cats there. So it's nice to have, with all of these more small and delicate prints, something really big. So speaking of a really big print, we've also got to pull in the rose. So we have these very hand-drawn, sketchy looking roses, but here we have a print that's got watercolor roses. So this is a very large scale print, and you'll really get, when we cut it down to 5.5-inch squares, it will really be a lot more abstract looking, which I think will really lend itself well to what's going on here. It's still in the same family because a lot of these are looking very hand drawn, which is a signature of Heather Ross's style, that her fabrics look, her prints look very hand drawn. So I think even to have something where you would be having a small square and that would be very abstract, I still think it would look like it came out of your sketchbook. So the theme still works. The colors work. We've got this bright green, kind of more of this lime color. The pinks is a little bit more pink maybe than what's here in the fabric, but the fact that it's got the coral orangish tone, I think still keeps it working together. It's okay to have a little bit of a color that's a little bit of an accent. And then we've got another rose print, this time with a mint background. So there's no other mint in this collection, but there is mint in my watercolor print, or aqua. And so I think it will tie those colors together enough. And like I said too, it's not putting me off. Maybe this one doesn't work for you because it's got this really saturated mint background, but for me it's, again, it's that unexpected element. It's still telling the story, right? But this is a much more literal, traditional rose print. But I still like it. It still, to me, looks like maybe you took a photograph of a rose and then you sketched it, or you did it in watercolor. And this is the inspirational rose that you took a picture of in your garden. It's the traditional maybe wallpaper that was at your grandmother's house that inspired you to draw her garden. So that's kind of the story to me in my mind, and it makes sense. And I love the pink tones. I think they tone in really well with what else is going on here in the quilt, as well as the yellow. So it's tying the yellow roses and the yellow flowers and the pink together more for me in a little bit different of a color, again adding that layer. So then the last of our very thematic pieces is the castle print. So I love this castle print. This one is again a cotton and steel from a few years ago. And I love the sort of like soft peach with the navy blue birds. Now there's not really any other navy blue, but again, I think it still works because it's adding a layer. And this looks like maybe you sketched castles. So maybe while you were in your garden with your kitty dreaming, you're dreaming of your unicorns and your castles. And it's a different scale print. Again, it's like more of a medium print. So I think that it works well, and it has a little bit more of a peach saturated background, which pulls some of our more peach elements together. So this particular blanket has a lot less of basics in it, just because we started with a whole pre-selected assortment bundle. So we had lots of coordinating prints to work with. And I feel like the graph print, even though it has the kitties, that's still reading to me a little bit more like a basic. So I still like it. I still think it works. She wanted a heavy themed quilt, so that's something to think about too. But then for me to add in some of those basic elements, I am adding this confetti dot from Riley Blake, and it's pulling in all of the colors together, right? So, and with a fun like confetti polka dot effect. So we've got gold, which we don't really have the metallic gold in here, but we do have this golden yellow, so I feel like that works. It's got the mint color and the green tones. It's got the navy, so now it's speaking to the one little tiny bit of navy that we have here and making that make sense. It's got both the darker and lighter coral as well as the clear pink, a little bit of soft blue, and I just think it pulls everything together in a nice, fun dot print that really goes with the whimsy of this quilt overall. And then lastly, to speak to the watercolor print, I have this other kind of looks like swatch or an abstract painting. It's got a little bit of the metallic, so now we're pulling the metallic from the dot. It's got all of the colors. It's got a soft buttery yellow, it's got a deep mustardy yellow, it's got more of the orange tones that are in some of our roses and some of our base prints. It's got the deep aqua and even this really deep, like almost, I'm not sure what you would call that, dark lichen or something. It's got a very soft blush color as well as all of the peach tones. And I just really love that this is going to pull the watercolor theme through and kind of make that make sense. So there you can see, that's quite the assortment of prints there. But I think it's this combining of all of the different prints together that really adds those layers of interest that you're going for, that makes your project unique and a little bit beyond basic. Okay, so to just quickly recap for you, if you're going out shopping for your own fabrics for this project, or you're pulling from your stash, I recommend, if you're not super comfortable, go ahead and start with a pre-made bundle. This is a great option. It gives you all of the coordinated colors. They've already got them all speaking to one another. It will be very easy for you to pull in just a few other unique fabrics that will make your quilt original. So you'll look for some basics that include a lot of the same colors as your feature prints, and as well as some just like secondary characters, your supporting characters that you can add that are also on theme. So go ahead and look for that. Or if you are really comfortable or you've been collecting fabrics for years, go ahead and start with your own themed bits. You know, maybe buy a few fat quarters of a collection and start with that, and then add in loads of great basics to round out and connect all of the dots of your quilt together. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to sewing with you in the next video.